It's no food, lots of frustration. Thousands of airline passengers stranded across all three major airports in our area due to flight delays and cancellations.
I want to go to San Francisco, but they canceled the flight and now we're in a long line trying to get a hotel for the night.
We went to Sicily.
Sicily?
Yes. And we were told this morning that our flight was canceled. United rebooked it. We have boarding passes, get here to recheck, and we're told it's canceled.
I should be heading to Montreal, Canada.
Montreal, okay.
Yes, we're attending the International Council of Nurses Congress. It starts soon.
And how long is your delay? Do you know?
I don't know. I was just told that the flight was canceled.
So this is not a good way to kick off the summer travel season, right? Passengers have rights. And joining us this morning to explain what you can do if you are like any of those folks and you're stuck is the managing editor of the Point Sky newsletter, Clint Henderson. So Clint, good to see you here.
Good to see you.
What a headache.
Nightmare.
This began over the weekend, and it's continuing now, and then we have the busy travel season, of course, coming this 4th of July weekend, right? Do you think that given all of the issues they've had because of the weather-related issue over the weekend, and they're trying to play catch-up, that it's going to be smooth sailing by the weekend?
No. Short answer. So
no.
I just looked. Already today we're at 1,500 flight delays or cancellations across the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's 7:30 in the morning. These things snowball. You know, we get afternoon thunderstorms. Last night, we had a ground stop at all three area airports, so that's really unusual.
Yeah.
Thunderstorms just surrounding. But the thing is, with thunderstorms, used to be they were able to recover quickly. Right now, because of air traffic controller shortages, et cetera, they just can't recover as quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's just a real mess right now.
Well, because weather is to blame, though, what are the airlines responsible for? Or are they off the hook for things like hotels, transportation? Because a lot of folks are stuck right now.
Yeah, it's really bad. Cots in airports, people
Yeah.
stuck for days at a time who can't afford necessarily to go to a hotel room and you know, charge whatever they need to get for that day. So unfortunately, because it's an act of God, according to the airlines, they're not on the hook for reimbursing you. Now, that said, sometimes they will, and there are new government pushes to put rules in place that would compensate passengers, even with weather and stuff like that. I just think we really need a federal Bill of Rights, a passenger Bill of Rights.
Yeah, because here's the thing. It's not just that you're trying, it's one night. Some folks are delayed for 3-4 days because they can't get a connecting flight or whatever it is, and they just don't have that kind of money.
Right.
So when you say a federal Bill of Rights, you're talking about the passenger Bill of Rights, right?
Exactly. So what I'm hoping is eventually in the U.S. we'll have something like they have in Europe, which is EU 261. It requires compensation if a delay is longer than 3 to 6 hours or if the flight's canceled. That would sort of force the airlines to prepare better in extreme weather situations like this. So I'm hoping that's eventually what this leads to, but folks should contact their Congress people and demand action, because we shouldn't have scenes of people sleeping in airports. It's just not really cool.
Right.
But it's worth asking the airline, right?
Absolutely. And you saw during Southwest's meltdown at Christmas time, they ended up making consumers whole. So I'm hopeful if a passenger applies enough pressure that they could be compensated potentially, and it never hurts to ask. You should always ask.
Gosh, okay. So here's the thing. You're saying it's an act of God for the weather, but there's also that issue of, like, I had a friend on Sunday, the weather had passed, but then their plane had no crew.
Right.
So they couldn't get a crew to the plane to get them, so the flight was canceled altogether. That's not an act of God. So how do you start differentiating the two, and how does the airline differentiate the two?
Well, and see, that's the problem, because there's so much wiggle room in that. It can be sunny skies where you are, but if your plane was delayed in San Francisco because of fog, that's considered weather. So it just gets really tricky, and there's so much wiggle room for the airlines, and that's why I'm so insistent there really needs to be a stronger passenger Bill of Rights to deal with these kind of situations. It's really, it's not, especially when the airlines can't recover like they used to.
Right.
And that's not all their fault, but they've got to take some of the burden for the responsibility.
Okay, in the meantime, you're a passenger, your flight gets canceled, delayed, what have you.
Yeah.
Is it the airline's responsibility to maybe book you on a different airline if they can't accommodate you, or how does that work?
So they're not required to. Sometimes they will, but usually that's when it helps if you have elite status, or you know, you've paid more for a ticket. The airlines have a lot of flexibility. They will put you on a competitor. They have interline agreements with the other airlines, but getting them to do it is tough, and you really have to be your own best advocate and really push them to do that. And these days, when every flight is sold out for ahead of a holiday weekend like the 4th of July, they don't have any planes to put you on. So even if American could put you on that Delta flight already has 50 people on the standby list because Delta canceled a flight earlier that day.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets really tricky. There's just not space for all the people.
How does elite status help you, though?
So they are willing to bend over backwards for their elite status members. So they'll do more for you in that case.
Okay.
If you say you're at the airport, you're delayed, right, or whatever, you're canceled flight.
Yeah.
You find a flight on a different airline.
Yeah.
You go ahead and you book it. You don't buy the trip insurance, whatever.
Yeah.
That flight's not for 2 days. Then you find another flight, so you cancel that one. But how do you get that money back? Can you?
So usually they will give you your money back, but only in the form of a voucher or a credit. They're not going to give you a full cash refund.
Okay. So here's the thing. What the heck is going on with the airline industry? Because I know you're saying that these problems, it seems like they kind of came post-pandemic.
Yes.
Obviously there's a shortage. We've talked about this. But is there an issue with just the overall systems that can be upgraded, and they don't seem to have this problem in Europe? So what's the situation there?
They do have this problem in Europe sometimes, but I will say, yes, the system should be upgraded. They should be investing in technology. There's no way, like the Southwest meltdown, that they should be scheduling people via email. It's just insanity.
Right.
So there really needs to be a bigger investment in some of the back end stuff. This is true of the FAA. It's true of air traffic controllers. Also staffing levels. That's where the real problem is at air traffic controls. They just don't have enough people, enough bodies in the air traffic control tower. And it takes a long time to train these folks. So it's just a pipeline. The airlines, the airports have gotten a little bit better at staffing this summer. So I'm hopeful they'll be able to recover a little more quickly than they have been. But that's what we were hoping for last summer too, and it didn't end up happening.
What would be your best advice to someone, though, if they're just trying to get answers? I mean, a lot of people post on social media.
Yeah.
And you can't get someone at the desk or what have you if you're at the airport. What would you suggest to them?
Couple tricks. So try social media direct messaging the airline.
Okay.
Sometimes you can get through, sometimes you can't. But also another trick I have is if the line for customer service is 2 hours long on hold, try an international phone number. So look up the Australia call center. Sometimes you'll be able to get through. They can still help you. If you have lounge access, go to the lounge for the airline because they have ticket agents at the lounge.
Oh, that's good.
So you can skip the line. Try the kiosk and always have the airline app installed on your phone because you can potentially rebook yourself.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of options right now.
Yeah. Some people on social media were saying they were on hold for 6-7 hours.
Yeah.
You know, can you just real quick, I know we're almost out of time, explain this whole idea of when a plane leaves the gate, sometimes it leaves the gate with nowhere to go, right? Because they're just required to do so. And then they sit on the tarmac and kind of circle and they're making way for other. I was reading this article about just how weird it is for planes that have to physically move out of the way. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, so this was the issue at LaGuardia last night. Literally, there was nowhere for any planes to go. So they wanted off the gate so they can put another plane there. But where do you put that plane if it can't take off for another hour? Where are you putting it? So then you end up with gridlock at the airport. So yeah, it gets really tricky. Sometimes you can pull away from the gate and then you can taxi for an hour.
With people on the plane.
With people on the plane.
And they're turning the plane off. And
but there are laws now that you have to let the people off the plane if it's 3 hours or more on the tarmac. But that's not always happening, especially in situations like
And there could be
this.
fines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they've gotten much better about that, by the way.
Wow.
That's what makes traffic on the Garden State Parkway not look so bad.
Right.
Exactly.
All right. Clint, thanks so much for coming in and giving us
you both.
great tips.